You have taste
You have to walk there.
in a way that's meaningful to
You have to
self-like
walk
people.
in the opening.
Hello,
Good.
I'm Bill Gates.
I would recommend TypeScript. Yeah, it writes a lot of code for me, and usually it's slightly wrong.
I'm reminded incidentally of Rust here.
Rust.
Rust.
This almost makes me happy that I didn't become a supermodel.
Cooper and Nets.
Well, I'm sorry, guys. I don't know what's going on.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today about large neural networks. It's really an honor to be here.
Rust.
Data Topics.
Welcome to the Data.
Welcome to the Data Topics podcast.
Hello and welcome to Data Topics Unplugged, your casual corner of the web where we discuss what's new in data every week. From SQL to Glue, anything goes. We're not live streaming today, but we'll make sure to have the video on YouTube. Actually, can we put stuff on LinkedIn? Probably not, right? Only if we fake a live stream,
I
right?
think we can just put a video on.
Can you just do it there? We can do that.
Or we put the links to the video on LinkedIn. Let's do that.
We'll do that.
Yeah.
We'll do that. So you don't miss out. Feel free to check us out there. If you want to follow us on the videos and stuff. But we're not live streaming today. I guess we're already going on a bit of a summer mode in a way.
Yeah.
We'll touch more on that later. If you leave your comment or question, we'll try to get back to you. Today is the 11th of July of 2024. My name is Murillo. I'll be hosting you today. Joined, as always, by my sidekick. Is it okay to call you sidekick, Bart?
I am right.
I don't know. Is it still on the podcast, maybe? Outside the podcast? Not sure. Always with us, making sure we're on our toes. On track is Alex. She's saying hi. Just trust me. And that's us. That's just us today, Bart.
That's just us three today.
Should we just jump in?
Let's jump.
There are some things that did happen, like, I think Chrome has a small AI model and some other things, but we haven't had the time yet to cover very thoroughly. So we'll maybe check that out first before covering here on the pod, but there are a few things that happened. But already going on the tech corner, sharing some cool stuff that we've seen, some things that we've touched upon. A wise man once said, a library a week keeps the mind at peak. Right, Bart?
Yes.
So what do we have? Maybe I'll show this one. I put this here, but actually you are the one that shared this one with me, Bart.
I'm curious to see what you're going to share now.
Bookmarklet maker.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So maybe this is actually the Git repo. So people following the video, you can actually see the Git repo here. Bookmarklet maker. I think there's bookmarks and there's bookmarklet.
No, there are bookmarks
And
there are applets.
applets. So in the bookmarklet
It's like the combination of those.
is a combination of those. Okay, so maybe a bookmark. I imagine that most people here already are familiar with bookmarks.
A bookmark is like if you're in your browser and you say bookmark this page, and you get a button that is basically a hyperlink to that page that you bookmarked.
Exactly. And what is a bookmarklet?
What a lot of people don't know is that your hyperlink to a page in a bookmark can also be a small piece of JavaScript code.
Yes.
And that can then, if you click that bookmark, can actually do something on the page that you're on.
Yes. So
Let's say somewhere like you're on a web page and you make like a minimal JavaScript code that just fetches the title of that page and gives it back to you in a pop-up or something. Like that type of logic you can save in a bookmark, where the content of the bookmark is basically that JavaScript code, and
yes,
you call it a bookmarklet.
indeed. The way I think of it, and actually I don't know if this goes on the no, this does not go on the screen sharing. But if you also open and inspect the web page, right, with the Chrome tools or something, there's also a console part that you can actually write JavaScript. Basically in line. So the way I understood it's kind of like that. Everything that you could run on that console is what you could also run on the bookmarklet.
I think that's a good
Actually, that's the way that I've
interpretation,
also
yeah.
tried to debug some things,
Yeah.
So indeed, as Bart mentioned, so really cool. So maybe there's also on the Git repo, there's also a YouTube video if you're more curious. So here, this is basically a quick way to creating these things, right? So the idea is that you can generate the bookmarklet. You have some JavaScript code that you can just put here.
Yeah. What Marilo was showing is like a small app with like a text input for where you can put in the JavaScript code. And
Yes, very minimal, but yeah, like a web app. And then you have some output here, which is just like a string and all these things. And then the idea is that you can bookmark they give also a link, right?
Yeah.
And you can also bookmark these things, and then you can interact with it. And actually,
it's a bit of a convenience tool to make this bookmark for you, right?
Exactly. So, and I think when I click generate or I click the bookmark, there's a alert. It doesn't show because I'm just sharing the tab on Chrome. But there are all sorts of cool things, right? So indeed, so this is just JavaScript. So that's what I saw first. But as you mentioned, you actually have access to what's on the page you're currently at, right? So if you go down below here, there are some examples like I guess it's submit, current URL to Reddit. You can actually get what the URL you have. You can get the title, and then you can actually like write posts and all these things, right? So there's quite a lot of cool stuff you can do with this. And this is how I would interact with things, right? So for example, and then I'm also thinking a bit ahead, right? Imagine you have an LLM, you have a API key to ChatGPT, right? One thing you could potentially do with this is every time you click on the bookmark link or the bookmark on your browser, you could kind of take the context of the text. So let's imagine that's a blog post, and you can send it to LLM and say, summarize this for me. So then you can kind of interact with other things that are not just JavaScript and there's not just in the app. So I thought it was pretty cool. Or I don't know, maybe Alex, when you're adding chapters to the YouTube video, we also have chapters from Buzzsprout, right? So today you have to kind of select this manually on the page, copy, paste, and maybe trim the end, the white space. This is also something you could automate with these things. The other thing I use this for is to actually, whenever I'm in a page, I wanted to take some information and post it somewhere else. So I also use ChatGPT to help me write the code because I'm not as proficient in JavaScript. And then the output actually was already copied into my clipboard with JavaScript. So then you just click the button. I have a pop-up that says, "Oh yeah, we copied this to your clipboard." And then I just Control V, right? Command V because I'm on a Mac, or Control V if you're on Windows. And then you just have the output there. So really, really cool. Actually, yeah, maybe I'm going too far with this, but I think it kind of opens a lot of possibilities, and I thought it was pretty cool. And actually, you shared this with me, Bart. Have you used this for something more meaningful than I have?
For very ad hoc stuff. For example, I use this for I sometimes run my workout schedule that I have in Training Peaks through ChatGPT to generate new workouts. But Training Peaks, which is like a bit of a data collection thing where all your workouts sync to there. But it doesn't have an open API. You need to become a approved developer and stuff like that. So I just have this small bookmarklet that fetches everything that is on the screen and just turns it into a JSON. Gives me the JSON and a pop-up, and I can very easily copy-paste the JSON to ChatGPT. And in ChatGPT, I have a custom GPT that does something with this.
Nice. Yeah, I was even thinking again, it's like all small quality improvement, quality of life improvement, right? But even thinking for LinkedIn, the stats, there's now API. So I was even wondering now today, if you want to actually do it, you have to go to it. You want scroll down to where the analytics are, copy, paste, go to the next one, copy to Excel or something, go back. And maybe these things can also help automate some of these things, especially if you have the clipboard, right? Maybe you can just append stuff to your clipboard. So you can
That's a good question. I don't know if the available API allows for it, but probably does. Yeah, it's just JavaScript. Yeah.
I think you can definitely put stuff on the clipboard because that I've done. But then I guess you could probably take the text and then append more to it and then push it back. So I thought it was pretty cool. Yeah, I think it's also definitely lower barrier than asking for an API key for something.
True.
Right? If you are in a bigger corporation. So very cool. Thanks for sharing, Bart. What else we have here? Harelba or maybe RouteLLM, since we're talking, we did touched on LLMs, which it's a bit hard not to do these days. What is a RouteLLM, Bart?
It's just a quick library that I found. I haven't looked into it in detail, but I think the premise is interesting. You're gonna put it on the screen.
Yeah, it's a bit.
It's so the tagline is, if you go up a little bit, it's a framework for serving and evaluating LLM routers, save LLM costs without compromising quality. So what you a router typically is a component in an LLM where you say, okay, I have a certain query, certain question to my conversational tool.
Okay.
And based on the topic or based on the intent, like you're routing to some logic.
I see. So it's like if I have a chatbot for like a financial institution, maybe I can have a question about my card, my credit card, or maybe I can have a question on how to open a savings account. And then based on the initial question, the router will say, this is something about opening a new account. So I'm gonna hand it over this information to a more specialized bot or something. Okay.
Bot, piece of logic, another LLM, these type of things.
Or I guess it could even be a department, right? Like if it doesn't need to be a bot, right? Redirect to the right person. Cool.
Exactly.
Okay.
So what you see typically when this is used at very large scale, let's say in an internal chatbot where you can like the example that you mentioned, like a bot that for a bank where customers chat to that needs to take a lot of actions. If you always use the best model out there, which more or less is GPT 4.0, it becomes very costly. And what RouteLLM allows you to do, it allows you to evaluate like for which type of routes I can use. I think they call it weaker models / cheaper models.
Yeah.
To also optimize the cost of your setup without decreasing performance.
I see.
And they have this evaluation framework. I don't know exactly how they build it to evaluate like what is the threshold where we can go to a weaker model while still maintaining the same performance, which is an interesting.
Yeah. So I guess is it all data driven? Like based on the questions and the quality of the answers, they can say, okay, like this is a question that a cheaper LLM can take care of, or is it something hard coded? Like
I think they have an optimization framework. I haven't tried it out myself. I think but that is a good question. But they have an evaluation framework, so I assume that they have a way to test that.
Very cool. So I guess there's still like a fine tuning kind of phase.
Yeah.
And then after that, you still have a deployment. And I guess it's still you need a open API key or any scale API key. So I guess it still uses LLMs.
It still uses LLMs, but it allows you to go to quote unquote weaker LLMs for where it's relevant. And I think we do this when we build these things at a large scale. We do this manually by building like for every router, for every piece of logic, tests, and then you say, okay, let's switch this one to a weaker model to see if we still have the same performance. But it's a very manual process.
Yeah,
like this running test and seeing like what is the threshold, where can we move to a weaker model without decreasing performance. I think if you have a way to automate that, I think that's very valuable.
And I think it eliminates a bit the guesswork, right? Because you probably say, I think a llama without billion parameters is good for these type of questions, but I think if you have a framework that objectively assesses these things,
exactly.
It's a stronger argument. Pretty cool. And what else we have on while we're on the tech corner here? We have Harelba, or what is this?
Q.
Yeah, but like what is Harelba is the user? This guy. Hold on. Harelba. Q. Q, run SQL directly on CSV or TSV files. So TSV and CSV is comma separated value or tab separated value, right? For people that are not familiar with these, is basically just a way to describe a table, right? So you have A, comma B, comma C. That means it's A, B, C, different columns of the same row, right? So very simple way of expressing this. What is this?
Q is a library. It's actually a command line tool that I came across. It's already a few years old, but I like what it does. So it allows you to do from your command line, basically run SQL query against a CSV file. So you can just say Q my SQL statement, and then you point to the CSV file. It really easily allows you to explore these CSV files.
And actually, how does it? Because I guess it's
it's a Python package that they built, but you use it as a command line tool.
And you specify the file name or the file path as the table name.
Oh.
So like the example here, skew-d-h. I don't know what the flags all mean, but select my field from my file.csv.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You can build a query, and then typically how I do this now, if I don't have something like this, is that I just open the CSV file in something like VS Code, and then I Command F do what I'm looking for. But I think this is a cool setup. I think it would be even better if we would have something like this, but with a DuckDB engine behind it, so that it's not just CSV files, but that you can do. That you can broader support, that you can maybe do joins, like these type of things.
I was gonna ask exactly that actually. What's the difference between this and DuckDB? Because DuckDB, there is a Python thing, but you can also install DuckDB as just as an extension, like a C, I think C or C++, and you can use it in your CLI as well. No.
But I don't think as simple as, unless I don't have a full view, but I don't think as simple as this with just this is my query, this is the file I want to query. I think that simplicity is what the value is of this thing.
Okay, maybe I could be wrong, or maybe you can check real quick. But I thought that you could do this on the CLI.
Yeah, that could be.
But still cool. And I think you said that this is not a very new. This is a bit. Well, you can also check. How old is this? Yeah, this commits from 2-3 years ago. Any reason why this came up now?
I don't know. It was somewhere in my newsfeed.
Cool. Maybe related news. Actually, something that I did see, but I forgot to put it on the notes. DuckDB has community extensions. So this is from the 5th of July. TLDR, DuckDB extensions can now be published via DuckDB community extensions repo.
Oh, that's nice.
So this repo makes it easier for you to install extensions using install extension name from community syntax. So they kind of talk a bit more about the design philosophy, the extension. So for example, spatial data is something that you could do. But I think I also think it's a good move, quote unquote.
So it's basically their own PyPI, but for DuckDB.
Like yeah, for DuckDB,
making it easy for the community to share stuff with other.
Exactly.
Oh, that's nice.
So I think there's some published extensions here. Crypto adds cryptographic hash functions to HMAC, H3, Lindell, PRQL, which I did running PRQL commands. I don't know what this is. Scrooge and Shell FS. Cool stuff, huh? I also think it's a good move because it kind of frees them from having to do all these things, huh?
Is there any validation of new stuff that is published, or is it just a free-for-all?
So if you go here, this is their community extensions repo. So I guess you need to make a merge request, right? There is a pull request here.
Oh wow! It all ends up in one single repo.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay,
then you have all the extensions, so people can install stuff. So there's probably a quality assurance thing,
Yeah,
right?
that's probably yeah.
But at the same time, it's maybe a bit dual because if there's an issue, they say, "Oh yeah, but this is open source. We're not on the roadmap." Or if they say, "Yeah, but this is So there's a bit of assurance, but maybe they can still delegate a bit the.
Same time, big bottleneck. Like if someone needs to approve all these merge requests.
That's true. But don't you think that it would be a bigger bottleneck if they need to implement, if they're the only one that can implement these things?
No, but I mean, the alternative is that you build something like PyPI, where like basically
and there's no
everybody
guarantee.
and their cousins can send something to.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. True. Do you think? Actually, I'm just wondering about the how do you say, the security concerns there.
For what? For this setup? You mean with the?
No,
PR?
if you like again, putting myself in the DuckDB's shoes, you want to expand it to the community. If you just open it up, there's, I guess, like the quality of the extensions may not be great, or maybe this or maybe that. But at the same time, does it reflect on your product, right? Is it a DuckDB problem? The same way that like if you have a shitty PyPI packages, it's not a Python problem.
No, because PyPI is very, very much like everybody can send something. So
Indeed,
also
but
the
that-
expectation is not like Python is in any way responsible for.
Indeed. And that's what I'm thinking here, right? Like if you want to create community extensions, like you mentioned, it's not PyPI. I'm assuming there is a reason why they went with this community extensions setup. I don't know if it's because it's easier to install or something. But I'm wondering what reasons do you have against having a PyPI for DuckDB?
Yeah, maybe the worry that it's a free for all, right?
Yeah, true.
If you have a PyPI for DuckDB, I think at the same time, like this, like without having looked into it in detail at all, like this gives a bit of view, like, okay, these are community extensions, but they have been vetted.
Yeah.
Like that's a
But-
bit the vibe it gives.
Yeah, I think it gives that vibe, but like there's no, like, you cannot say it's vetted, but at the same time, if there's an issue, you say, oh, but I didn't do it.
Yeah, true.
Right? I think you kind of either you say I vetted this, I back this up, and then if there's an issue, I kind of take responsibility, or I just say, oh no, this is a community extension, I didn't build this, I'm not going to maintain this.
True.
So it's a bit dual, huh? But still, I think I think having these plugins, I think it's a good move, right? I also know that Polars, they also had some extension stuff.
Okay.
That is also like
similar to this setup.
No, I don't. I think, well, I don't know exactly all the setup. Maybe I need to look into it more. I know you write the extensions in Rust, actually. And then it has a certain contract. And then I think you can install, like, you're installing a PyPI project. So it can be a local thing. You don't need to.
Let's see.
And actually, after that, a lot of different extensions, like for data science, for different, like, for business data. But I think it was a good move in the sense that it opens up for all the people's needs. You don't have to guess what the community wants. They can kind of do it themselves. And it kind of frees you the work, right? So thought it was cool. Looking forward to see what else pops up from DuckDB. Really cool tech as well. And what else we have here? What else we have? Maybe semi-related to DuckDB. Not DuckDB, but semi-related to this strategy of, like, not taking accountability for things. I ran into this article, Apple Intelligence and AI Maximalism. So it's a fairly long article. Basically, it's a reflection on the Apple Intelligence.
Okay.
And I did touch upon this last week, but I wanted to zoom in a bit. Reading this too, I put a lot of stuff in retrospective, right? How, for example, Apple, I think we can agree that Apple has a reputation for releasing very polished products.
Okay.
I think we can agree that Gen AI hasn't always delivered on the polishedness, let's say. And like Apple took a long time. So in the article they mentioned, like, Apple released Apple Intelligence. Apple, they also have a lot of large foundational models on Hugging Face, and they're not bad at all, right? It's not like these models are performing way worse than other models there.
Okay.
But why don't they? But you don't interact with them directly, or in the sense that you don't chat with these things. Like, even on the Apple Intelligence, the keynote, I guess.
Yeah.
They show that the AI part is actually to have context being sent from one app to another, right?
Okay.
Like, you create a emoji of your mom and then you send it to her, right? Like, but then two different apps that you have the context and you can share the things. And then he kind of reflects that, well, two things. One, if you do need to chat with a chatbot, they're actually using ChatGPT today, which frees them from the accountability of hallucination.
Okay.
And I remember also we mentioned on the Apple Intelligence that it was a bit strange that Apple was naming competitors or other companies within their keynote, which I thought it was a bit of they're admitting defeat. But at the same time, by announcing, saying, yeah, if you have any questions that, like, you have a chat, like you ask Siri something, Siri's not going to say, oh, this is what I found on the web. They're going to say, oh, this is what ChatGPT tell you.
Yeah.
So then if ChatGPT tells them to put glue on pizza, it's not Apple's reputation on the line. It's ChatGPT.
Sure. Yeah.
And everything that Apple does for Gen AI, it's about services, APIs. So it's more constrained. So the hallucinations is like Apple.
What they do themselves, you mean?
Yeah. So for example, if you say Siri, send a message to this, they will just send a message, right? So there won't be a hallucination. It's not like you will do something completely different, right? All in all, what they're saying is, because the actions from the Apple Intelligent AI, I guess, the Apple LLMs, they're more constrained, it won't hallucinate as much. still creating that very polished experience.
Okay.
And they're still allowing the power of LLMs, the very unstructured stuff, but they're delegating the potential consequences to the actual ChatGPT. They may have Gemini later, right? So in that way, they can still maintain that very polished things look, and still give the users the ChatGPT
Interesting.
capabilities, right? Which is a different take, because I thought when I read it at first, I was like, okay, Apple was just kind of, when I saw first the keynote, my first impression is that Apple was kind of admitting that it's behind on AI. But I think when you look at it this way, it also makes a lot of sense.
To make sure that's where they themselves build something on AI that is really polished.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. It won't never do these goofy mistakes of, say, put glue on your pizza.
No.
Right. It will never do these things.
Because what I do have the feeling that you see popping up more and more in the news feeds is a bit of a disillusion also with Gen AI. Like there's so much promise, but where is the delivery? And I think it's definitely changed, but also like at the same time, it's not like it looks very a year ago. Well, how long ago did we get ChatGPT? A year and a half ago?
Yeah, a year and a half ago, I think.
It was like, wow, is this possible? Right?
Yeah.
And today, like the wow factor is a bit gone.
Yeah.
And then you ask ChatGPT, where can I get fries on Sunday morning at 8 o'clock in Leuven? And then it will give an answer, and it's like 90% wrong.
Yeah. And I think that bothers us more now.
And that bothers us more, yeah, exactly. And I think that is a smart take of Apple to like those type of things where there's a big chance of indeed hallucination, and where you have this feeling, yeah, this is not creating value for me, to offload that to someone else.
Exactly.
But at the same time, I think where it does create value, I think, for example, speech to text.
Yeah.
Where they can very much improve from what they had with Siri, for example.
Exactly. No, I agree. But I also think it kind of, well, it's another reason why you wouldn't just use ChatGPT behind, but you put a layer on top and say it's Apple, right? Like you actually expose ChatGPT all the way.
Yeah.
Right. Which I guess has a bit dual, right? Like the good things is ChatGPT, but the bad things, which I think, like you said, they bother us more.
Yeah.
Gets linked to the ChatGPT image, not Apple image.
Yeah, that's true.
Right. The other thing that they mentioned that I thought was pretty interesting is that they're offloading the cost of compute to users, because
in what way?
Huh?
In what way?
Because they say like they frame it as privacy, but like today the Apple intelligence is only for iPhone 15 Pro and later devices, and they say it's because of the hardware, right? Which I think is good for different reasons, right? The privacy, also the efficiency. But that also means that if people start using a lot the AI stuff, it's going to first run your device. And
like
the
it's
hardware,
gonna like the energy you pay yourself, basically.
The energy, but also the hardware, right? Like if they shoot up the price, but they say, yeah, but this has a very expensive chip to run your AI models, you're paying for it.
Yeah, that's right.
Right? You're not sending to a different server. So the cost and scaling these things up, if everyone starts using AI, who's paying is the users. They're also shifting the cost of running these models to the user, which I also thought it was an interesting insight. I didn't think of it like that.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
It's not as costly to run these models because they're running on like for Apple point of view.
But then we would see more significant price increases if they.
Yeah.
Indeed. I mean, we see a price increase with every iPhone that comes out, right?
Indeed.
And we've never really
complain, or it's like, well, this is, I mean, I always say, well, this is expensive, but it's like, well, but this is really really good, you know. So I think it's like, but I think from the Apple side, they're not going to see spikes on the server costs, or maybe they will, because I know that they say that if it's not enough on the device, they will use the private cloud. But there is another layer to it, right? And now they frame it as privacy, but there's a lot of stuff for them to do it as well.
I see. Yeah.
Which is another thing that I didn't, when I was reading the article, I was like, well, that's actually true. So yeah, it was an interesting. I thought it was very insightful.
Yeah, true.
A lot of different point of views that I didn't really think.
Let's see how hot our iPhones will get in the future.
It's true. It's like the Apple cases will have a fan on.
Yeah.
some like cooling fluid around.
When it's winter and you put them outside on your window, still like the performance gets better of the LLM.
Exactly. Or like when it's winter, you turn off the AC in your house, you just left your phone there doing some computations. Yeah. But yeah, I thought it was cool, interesting. I also wonder if more people are also going to take this approach there.
I'm gonna let you introduce the next one. I'm gonna take 1 minute.
1 minute. Okay. So the next topic, it's about glue, huh? Glue? Yes, it's about glue. I'm gonna talk to you, Alex. I know you don't have a mic on. Yeah. Okay. Cool. You're gonna join us in Bart's absence. This is an article that is not necessarily new, but it's something that someone shared semi-recently. I thought it was pretty interesting. The blog is called No Idea Blog. I'll go over the slides here to set the scene a bit. This is also a talk. So the slides are here, but you can also see the link for the actual talk here. This is from a technical leadership in Glue. I don't know. So it's from a lead dev conference, I guess. So I'll go over quickly. Yeah. So to set the stage, we ready, Alex?
Yes.
All right. So let's talk about here being Glue. They also talk about like this is a software still. It's like a software engineering leadership. So then they're talking a bit about the different skills and profiles you need on an engineering team, right? And then she also introduces the glue work. I'm going very quickly. Yeah? So people that are actually interested at want, I also advise you to watch the talk. Glue work basically is something expected when you're a senior, but if it's also risky if you're not a senior and you start doing glue work. What is glue work? Maybe I'll jump ahead a bit. Glue work is a bit everything that needs to happen for a software project, a software team to be successful. That is not engineering work necessarily. It's not programming. It's not all these things, right? So there's a cautionary tale here. This is not. She does say that this is not a true story. It's like more of a group of true stories. So the idea is that there was a software engineer. She just joined the team. The team is very friendly but busy. So she feels a bit bad because she's also trying to contribute, but because she's new, there's a lot of stuff that is not documented, and then she has a win. She realizes when she's talking to the customer of who's going to use that piece of code that maybe they're not actually looking at the right problem. So they actually set a meeting with the customer and the team, and they actually get on the right track. She also remembered how she had a hard time being onboarded because everyone's really busy. So she actually takes up the onboarding role, right? She also realizes that there's a lot of crashes, so she actually pushes for more standardization, more unit tests. She also checks, like, some people are complaining about deadlines and whatnot. And she also unblocks some people to deploy some work, right? Basically, awesome coder, she calls it here, right? She helps that person have the information and set everything and not be bothered with other things. Anyways, so this is a bit the cautionary tale. The idea is that there's a promotion coming soon. And she's a bit hopeful that she will have a shot at this promotion. She's doing a lot of work that is considered senior work. But turns out that they're actually promoting the people that wrote the code, the awesome coder, or the person that designed the systems engineer, right? And then becomes a surprise. So this is a bit the cautionary tale. Glue work here is basically everything that needs to happen. So setting those meetings, finding out what's the actual problem and all these things.
So glue work is non-coding tasks that are crucial for the success. Exactly.
Right? But even things like onboarding, right? You have a new person on the team, but also that person needs to be up to speed, right? So there's a question on whether this work, like if someone that is not as senior does this work, should that qualify that person to be a senior engineer, right? And that's when glue work for someone that is not senior can actually hurt their career, right? So the argument here is that she's making, not me, just to be clear, that whenever someone is more senior engineer, people expect you to set the direction of the project, to take care of these things, make sure everyone else is efficient, right? But if you're not senior and you take up this role, because you're not coding, you're not contributing, you're not doing the value-adding tasks, they don't see that as actual productive work. So it's a matter of like what people expect you to do versus what you're doing.
think this also very much depends on like the environment you're in, right? I think you're talking about like very stereotypical, purely engineering teams.
Yes, and I think also this talk is from a while ago. Let's check. Do we have a date here? Oh, we can actually. Yeah, I'm gonna go. Yeah, 5 years ago. So the YouTube video, this video is from 5 years ago. I also feel like things. So I feel like the reason why I was also drawn a bit to this is because I feel like I do a lot of glue work today. Also, this is the stereotypical calendar, right, of someone that does glue work. It's very hard to actually.
Oh wow! When I see that, maybe I also do glue work.
Yes, I probably do. So you have a lot of meetings, right? And the time in between is the time that you would code. But realistically, if you have 1 hour or 2 hours per day in between meetings, it's not really enough time to really get in the code and start being productive, right? So yeah, another things that I thought it was interesting that.
But isn't it just like, if this is the case, and like, is it not just a wrong definition of the role if you say that you're only adding value if you're coding?
Yes. So that's the thing. So actually, she talks about this later. Huh? So the one advice is that. Well, I don't think I can find it, but in any case, the people, sometimes this happens, like people say, oh, you're so good at communicating, you're so good at soft skills, you should be a manager, right? That's usually the people's reflection, because then if you change your job title, like you match the job title to the work you're currently doing.
Okay.
Right? Instead of match the work you're doing with the work you want to do with your job title. And then again, there's like a bit of a decision for people, right? Like, do you actually want to, what do you want to do, right? Where do you want to focus your time in, right? Yeah, I think for me, personally, right, I did say I'm doing a lot of glue work, but I do think today this is expected of my role, right?
Yeah.
I do feel like I'm someone that has a technical background-ish, I guess, sometimes, most of the time, hopefully. But I'm not doing this at all today. But I do feel like this is expected of me, and I do think that this reflects on the evaluations and stuff that I have, right? Because it's an expectation. I do think that it would be a problem if you have a team, you have like 5 people in a room, and then one person takes this role, but there's no clear distinction between why is this person doing it and that person not doing it.
No, I agree.
Right?
Yeah.
And then she's also saying that, well, maybe before that, one other thing that I thought it was interesting and worth mentioning, and I know, Bart, this is a bit the focus point here. There were studies that were done that women volunteered more for doing this glue work if you have a group of people. And again,
actually, the study says women volunteer more for tasks that don't lead to promotions.
Exactly, because that's the thing. Yeah, like if you do glue work and you're an engineer, and it's not expected you to do this glue work, you're not going to be promoted. That's the thesis of the talk.
But I don't agree with the original premise that this is in every engineering
setup
is the case.
No.
I think like we're probably very typical from a standard engineering that we are a consultancy company. I think glue work is here recognized more than coding, because coding is the default. Like I think it springs to attention of people if someone does something outside of that coding.
Yeah, I also think that today, again, this talk was from 5 years ago. I haven't experienced much of that. Like you're in a group with 4 or 5 people, and then everyone has the same role, and one person is actually taking up all these things. But I thought it was I thought it was interesting. The person who did this talk is also a woman, and she shared this study. She also mentioned that the interesting part of that study, if it's like 5 engineers and they're all male, they have no problem finding a male volunteer to do this work. But if there is a woman, they observed that men were less likely to volunteer because they, in the back of their minds or rationally or whatever, they expected or they waited for the women to volunteer.
Wow.
So a bit of a social dynamics there as well, which also can hurt the career of women as well in these technical roles, right? So yeah, and that's the other thing, yeah. Like if something that cannot be, what she proposes here is that the glue work should actually be split across the whole team, which I think, and that's a bit of the question that I wanted to ask you. I think this is a nice idea, but I don't know how realistic it is.
I think it really depends on the tasks. If it's about, let's say, I have a hard time coming with examples, but let's say coaching more junior people on how to code.
Yeah.
Within the context of your project, I think it's probably should be someone that everybody is expected to take up if you're more senior.
I think so, but I think at the same time is like, how do you split that evenly, right?
Sure, but like take another example, like from the moment that you say, okay, for the project that we're doing, stakeholder management with the people from the counterparts from the business, that is super valuable. Like that is a specific task, right? Like you need to
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
give clear ownership. Like it's
But
it's essential to the project.
But
Like,
that's to me the biggest thing. Yeah, like I think if you try to spread the things evenly,
Yeah.
the ownership aspect of it, it's less clear.
Yeah.
Like if you say everyone's responsible for coaching and no one coaches that person, who's responsible?
yeah, but indeed, that's
You
a
know,
fair point.
and
That's
I
end
think-
responsibility again.
Exactly. And I think when there's a stakeholder management, usually you do want someone to take ownership and you do have someone that you go to ask
Yeah.
questions, right? So I think in those cases, yeah. And that's why to me, and I think you can have different tasks and you can have different responsibilities, right? Like, okay, you're the main responsible for coaching. You're the main responsible for making sure in the right direction. You can make. So I think it's more like a vertical thing. Not to say that all these things take the same time, but I also wonder how successful a team would be if you say, okay, we're going to split all the glue work evenly across all the team members.
Then you need to be very explicit on expectations.
Yeah, indeed. Huh?
That is.
And I think again, it's easy to be explicit if you say you're the one that needs to make sure this person is onboarded or coached, right? Than to say all of you have to do 1/5 of the onboarding.
Yeah, and I think in a lot of realities like this is also not the default, that all these tasks that she mentioned here are seen as non-value adding.
Yeah, I think it depends.
I think it depends very much on, like, this sounds to me like someone that is working in a tech company in one of the 50 coding teams, engineering teams of the tech company, or like where it's.
Yeah.
But I think that is often. You're often also in a bit more of a holistic environment, right? Like where tech is in a supporting mode, where you need to divide business, where there is a clear governance around coaching.
Yeah, no, but I agree. And I also agree that I would be very surprised if I hear from a colleague that they said, yeah, I've been doing all this glue work or however they want to call it, but they don't see me as a leader.
Yeah.
Which is something that kind of came across on this presentation, but I don't know if that's the reality today. Like, I mean, not saying that it doesn't happen, right? Like maybe someone can contradict me, but I'll be very surprised if I hear that from someone.
But I do think for a tech company where there's this very extreme strong engineering focus, like the best coder is the most visible.
Yeah, but they still.
It's maybe a bit of a black white, but like I think because that's a bit what she's saying, like coding is valued more than other things. I think that's very dependent on the culture of the company that you're in.
Yeah, but I think especially if you're an engineer, right? But I do think if you're leading the project, like you need to do this, you need to do that, this is what the customers want. To me, that is leadership.
Yeah,
like,
but I agree.
Maybe you're not the most, like, I think maybe in my head, you may not be the most valuable person, but you are the leader. Like maybe the most valuable person is the one, the coder guru that can get everything done, but he's not the lead. Like I still don't see that as the leader.
But if it is not valued, that is a problem, right? Like within the company. Like if they're looking at the end of the month, like how many story points did this person solve?
Yeah.
And this glue work is not translated into story points, then that is a problem.
Yeah.
Right.
No, I completely agree. But I also think it's harder to have this, like it's not as common. I think it's harder to know that, hey, we're focusing on the wrong stuff here. Let's take a step back. Than to say, how do I write this application? You know, like
True.
I think the passive thinking, like the questioning yourself, that there's no moment that people is asking you stuff, but just like this second to like, oh, maybe I don't think we should be doing this. Or maybe we should be focusing on that. I think that's way harder to acquire or to have than a coder guru, right? So, all right, and I think that's it for today. Maybe we're talking a bit about the next weeks.
Yes.
Summer is here in Belgium finally after some delays, let's say. Woohoo! Yes. I saw Alex. She was like looking something like super quick.
the summer months we're gonna try to be there.
Yes,
Might take a bit of a different shape. Might be less regular.
indeed. It may not be live
Um,
streamed.
May
right?
not be live streamed.
It may not be as a timely, like newsy thing, but we don't want you to forget about us. So
we
try
might
to,
play around a bit with different concepts, but
see what sticks, see what doesn't.
we will be here. Maybe not all three of us for every episode, but you can expect us to be back regularly, weekly as of September, right?
I think that's a fair.
Oh.
Second half of September.
Second half of September. What is in the first half of September?
I have some commitments. So,
Really?
yeah, I know.
Yeah, can we go into this?
Gotta put a ring on this finger. You know what I'm
Oh,
saying? Can I get an applause there again?
he's getting married.
Yeah. I was actually sure if we should put the applause or the money or anything, you know. But yeah, so not gonna be yeah, but we'll be back.
So good things coming in the coming months, right?
Definitely, definitely. And also to enjoy the nice weather. Hope everyone is also enjoying this.
Enjoy the summer, everybody.
Yes. All right. Thank you. See you next time. Ciao.
You have taste in a way that's meaningful to software people.
Hello, I'm Bill Gates.
I would recommend TypeScript. Yeah, it writes a lot of code for me, and usually it's slightly wrong.
I'm reminded, incidentally, of Rust here.
Rust.
This almost makes me happy that I didn't become a supermodel.
Tuber and netties.
Boy, I'm sorry, guys. I don't know what's going on.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today about large neural networks. It's really an honor to be here.
Rust.
Data topics.
Welcome to the data.
Welcome to the Data Topics podcast.